is this, okay? When you think about self-defense training, when you walk out of the school, you go into the parking lot, you have layers of defense. Before you get into a physical altercation, when you get into a physical altercation, a lot of things have gone wrong, typically, in order for you to get there. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you did everything right, and somebody just chooses to make you or try to make you into a victim, okay? That's just the reality of the world we live in. But as much as possible, we want to try to do the things that we can do to prevent that. So the first D in DDA is deterrence. Deterrence. So before I'm attacked, right, whatever form of attack that is, I want to do everything in my power to try to deter said attack, right? What are some ways that we can deter a potential attacker? Alan?
Stay off your phone.
Stay off your phone, right? Yeah. So if I'm walking on the street and I'm doing this number, right? This makes me look like an easy target, right? Criminals don't go after guys like Kevin or guys that are, like Cain, bigger, taller, stronger guys, right? They're always going to go after somebody that they view as weaker than them, right? 100% of the time. So what makes you weaker than looking at your phone, right? Now you're unconscious, not even aware of your surroundings, okay? So that's absolutely. So deterrence is walking confidently, right? Having your head held high, right? Making sure you don't look like an easy target, okay? Any other things you can do for deterrence?
Assessing the situation.
We'll get there, but an attacker is not going to know if you're assessing a situation, but you can look like you're assessing a situation. You can eye contact, absolutely. Eye contact is a form of deterrence, right? You got things like going in groups. If you have an animal, a dog or pet with you, things like that, those are typically deterrents. If you have something that you're carrying with you that can be potentially used as a weapon, if you're carrying an umbrella, that's visible, or a stick or something that could potentially be used as a weapon, you just walking around with it, that's a deterrent, right, for somebody trying to attack you. So deterrence is the first D, right? But sometimes you can't always deter situations, right? The next D is detection. Right? Detection. So you need to detect, right? I did everything I could to try to deter an attacker, right? I wasn't on my phone. I was confident. I was walking in a group. But I also need to be able to detect, that's what Chris was saying, I need to be able to detect a potential threat, okay? Detection of a potential threat. Give me some signs of a potential threat. Anybody know? Yeah, Brian. Yeah, somebody's giving you hard contact, which was all the time when I was growing up. You look at somebody wrong, they're ready to fight you. You know what I'm saying? That was always the case. But it can be, absolutely. They give you eye contact, they're looking at you.
Somebody speeding up to get close to you?
Speeding up close to you, absolutely, 100%. Especially when we talk about human trafficking, right? If a car just gets real close to you, approaches you, right? That is a big, big red flag, okay? In terms of that detection. What else? A group of people blocking a sidewalk, right, where you can't pass, right? Absolutely. That's not a good thing, right? What else, Brian?
Adjusted movement based on you, like they're obviously giving you attention.
Yeah, they adjust their movement, right? So you see them going one way, then they make eye contact with you or see you, and then they change direction, and now they start approaching you. Yeah, Mitchell?
People wearing ski masks or stuff that doesn't show their face or anything detectable about them.
Absolutely, yeah. People wearing ski masks. I mean, that's the reality, right? Because if you watch recent news and situations, things have happened to people based on somebody because they're wearing, full camo or they're wearing body armor, and there's no reason they should be walking around in body armor and a ski mask, right? Typically, right? Unless they're law enforcement. But yeah, that's a common thing that we see sometimes with different attacks. Those are absolutely all good indicators. Some of the other things that we want to think about is if somebody's clearing their hands. Clearing their hands means that if they have their phone out, they put their phone away, and so that their hands are free to be able to grab you, right? Or something along those lines. Or if you can't see their hands, right? You can't see what's in their hand or what's in their pockets, right? That can be a potential sign. The biggest thing is being aware of your surroundings and know who's around you. Because the best idea is not to be in a fight, okay? It's just not. That's the worst thing you want to be in. Even if you know how to fight. Even in myself, I never want to be in a fight. Ever, 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 right? Okay, so we tried to deter, we tried to detect, or we did detect. Maybe we detected something, okay? Once we detect it, the A is to try to avoid it, right? We want to avoid that situation, okay? So maybe that means walking on the other side of the street. Maybe that means taking a different way home, you know? What are some other ways that we can avoid a potential threat, right? It's only so many things we can do, right? What do you guys think?
Get in your car, lock the doors.
Get in your car, lock the doors. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Avoid.
Run.
100%. 100% run. I saw one clip on Facebook or somewhere where a young girl, she felt like she was being followed. And she was, you know, and she bolted, you know, she left. And I think she hid and was able to escape. But the person followed her home into her apartment and went upstairs and everything. She was coming home from school, you know, these kind of things. So just absolutely run, even if you're not sure. The next D is, of course, maybe you weren't able to avoid the situation. So now you're trying to diffuse it, right? Now you're trying to diffuse it. What do I mean by diffusing a situation? Say again?
Bring down the intensity of the situation.
Bring down the intensity, right? So you're trying to talk the person down, talk them out of it, right? In a lot of cases, that's hard to do because they've already decided, they made up their mind what they want to do, and they're already committed, okay? But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to deter them or talk them out of those kind of things that they're trying to do, right? And then the last D, that's the one we don't want to be in, of course, is defense, right? That's where you have to physically defend yourself to stop the person from doing what they are attempting to do to you, okay? The defensive aspect of it is mostly what we train in our school, right? Physically, how to defend ourselves. But there's a lot of subtleties to defense, especially as a weaker person, right? So if I'm in a situation where I have to defend myself, certainly I want to approach it from a position where I'm still in diffuse mode. I don't want them to know when I switch to defend mode, right? They might think I'm still in diffuse mode, but I'm actually going to most likely preemptively attack from my diffuse mode. I'm not going to wait for them to figure out, especially if it looks like it's going south. I'm not going to wait. The key to surviving a violent encounter is to commit. To commit, meaning that whatever action you take, be committed to that action. Okay? A lot of times we get in situations, or people get in situations where they commit, but then they get nervous, they get scared, or something happens, and then that's when they get hurt, right? Once you commit until that person is no longer a threat or until you're able to escape. So committing is very important. The psychology of fighting is very different than what you might think about in a classroom, right? Because we're training in a controlled environment, we feel safe, but in a violent encounter, mentally, from the mindset standpoint, you can't think of it as terms of, oh, I'm trying to defend myself. You got to think about it as I'm trying to hurt this individual. You almost, they talk about turning yourself from prey to predator. And that is really what has to happen in that mental switch. We all have to have that. Mitchell, yeah.
You could just put it as it's either life or death. Or
Absolutely. You should assume that it's life or death, right? If that person is, yeah, I mean, absolutely. You should always make that assumption. And you need to think about the people you got to go home to, you know, your loved ones, right? If you're not going to, think about that. Don't let that person, you had something, Brian?
No, that the nephew fights, the lack of commitment or that hesitation.
Uh-huh.
So real.
Lack of commitment and hesitation, absolutely.
You're like right there, you're used to pulling it, you're not used to pulling,
Yeah, because we train, right, to pull our punches and to be controlled and things like that. But we need to be able to turn the switch and have that all-out violence. That's what it is. There's nothing pretty about it. There's nothing nice about it. Funny, it's not fun at all, okay? But we have to be able to do that. And most of us, if you were raised like me, you were raised to be a good person, right? You weren't raised to have that kind of aggression. And so it's hard to say you got to be aggressive. You have to be able to turn that switch on. It's something that you can train to the best of your ability, but that is the reality of it. The people who survive violent encounters are typically ones who are familiar with violence, who've experienced violence. Experience is the number one factor that leads to successfully surviving a violent encounter. So we do train. Okay, and so we do have some experience, right? So that's why we train. But outside of experience with violence, things like physical conditioning, being in shape. People don't think about it. They think about, oh, well, if I know the right, technique, then I will survive a violent encounter. It really has nothing to do with technique. It has to do with your experience with violence and your physical fitness. Those are the two biggest factors. Technique is at the bottom, okay, what technique you use. A lot of times the technique you use doesn't even matter. It's just, are you committed, right, because you have that experience, and your will to survive. It has very little to do with, okay, I'm gonna, put my hand before foot, and I'm gonna use a repost, and I'm gonna intercept. Those are all great concepts, right? But the reality is, you got to be able to commit, and it's just a different situation. So the last element to this is the E, right? E is you've hopefully successfully defended yourself. Next thing is to escape, right? What are some elements of escape you think about? What do you think, Mitchell? Running, absolutely. Yeah, you want to run.
Or during a person's eyes and run.
Yeah.
Distraction.
You want to escape by any means possible. Escape by any means possible, absolutely. What else? Anybody?
Breaking line of sight.
Breaking line of sight. What does that mean?
Like getting behind, just getting behind a corner, or like just doing anything to give yourself that.
Yep. Getting behind getting behind something, hiding, right? Getting away so they can't see you. Brian?
I don't know if it counts, but bring attention to yourself.
You said, oh yeah, absolutely. Bring attention to yourself, right? There's people coming. Sometimes, escape is by escaping, by essentially bringing people in to the situation so the environment is changed. Absolutely.
You could do something that makes you turn again, like grab something that a weapon or something.
Absolutely.
That wasn't there before, became a weapon opportunity.
And I failed to mention that, right? So when you talk about defense, always look for an equalizer, right? Always look for something you can use as an equalizer, right? One of the tactics that Sifu Mick taught me and showed me was carrying a pin, right? Just having a pin in your shirt. Right? Somebody grabs you, if you can even use the pin to stab their arms, right? You don't need a whole lot of strength to stab their arms and stab in the face, but it's an easy tool, right? It's not really a weapon, but it's just a tool that you can use, just carrying a pin with you. But always look for that equalizer. Some of the other aspects of escape you want to think about any injuries that you have, right? So as you're running, think about, okay, am I hurt? Am I bleeding? Have I been cut, stabbed, shot? What's going on? So you want to try to assess what's happening with you so you don't fall over and bleed out, obviously, and you get medical attention. You also want to be cognizant of, is anybody else in danger? Anybody else in risk? When is it safe to be able to call 911 or call emergency services? Okay, so those are some other things you want to be cognizant of and being able to call for help, in the process of escape. Okay, any questions on that? So that's framework for self-defense. So what we're going to work on today is, what do you do? We're going to work on grabs, escapes from grabs, okay?
The purpose of our organization is to start right here in Harlem, which has the largest concentration of people of African descent that exists anywhere on this earth. There are more Africans here in Harlem than exist in any city on the African continent, because that's what you and I are, Africans.